When I moved from teaching middle school math down to second grade, I spent hours and weekends looking up math centers and what to do and how to do it. Because as a middle school math teacher, I had never even thought of that or understood what that was. And it turns out all I really needed to do was come work with you and steal your ideas. Hello, my Time Crunch teachers, and welcome to the show. This is your team teacher, Mariel Desrosier, here to help you optimize your teaching, technology, and time management. And with me today is third grade teacher, Stephanie Hedgpeth-Lopez. And today we're talking about math centers. We'll be covering a few topics today. The first is what are centers, or why might you choose to have them in your math block. And then we'll each go over how we structure our individual math blocks with a couple different options depending on how much time you have in your math block. We'll also go over what our actual specific centers are with different options based off of what you have available to you, or maybe what time you have, or even what sort of curriculum or unit you're on. And then finally, basically how to keep everyone on task while you're working with that small group at the teacher table.
That's the hardest part.
Because that was the part I did not understand. And the main point is we really want to make this manageable and doable for anyone. And we don't want it to feel overwhelming, because I know it was very overwhelming for me before I kind of stumbled on what would work. And we also want to give you permission that you don't have to be like fancy or entertaining for the kids.
Because I am not.
Yeah, either am I. And you don't need to change them every day. And the point is that once you sort of fine tune maybe what options we have or ones that your coworkers or colleagues use, you just lock in what works for you and just keep it consistent for the year and have it match your curriculum. And what's nice, I think, about some of the options we're going to go over is that it is totally customizable for a specific school or curriculum.
Right.
All those factors are kind of independent, and you kind of just work with what works for you.
Well, I kind of like to think about, I like process centers versus product. Like don't have a specific outcome, or I have to finish this page. I'm doing something that's practicing the process, the thinking that goes, or practicing just the skill of, say, multiplication or adding or subtracting.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think when I definitely was first looking at centers, they were very product oriented. Like the kids have to finish this, or at this station, they have to do this. And that is so not necessary.
No.
The kids just need the practice and, like you're saying, the process. And a lot of the stations we're going to talk about too are collaborative. And that's where they learn, when they're working with other students or they're working with the teacher. So let's talk about what centers are, and we'll also be doing another episode where we talk about our ELA centers or reading and phonics centers, but we're going to focus on math today. And if you're unfamiliar with centers, or you're like me, you taught a middle school math that was a little more traditional teacher direct instruction and then student group work or whatever it might be, basically what it is centers or stations are student groupings that, and the students as a group rotate through different stations and with specific student-led activities, right? Because they have to be independent. The kids are doing them on their own because you, the teacher, are working with a set of kids either at a station or at a teacher table, and the kids rotate through you. And like I said, a lot of different things that I saw had like multiple rotations and, every group has to get to you every day, which is not how mine is at all. So we're going to talk about what those stations are and how they rotate. But that's basically what centers are, right? They're stations or centers that the kids go to so that it allows the students to practice the skills and strategies that they've learned in, sort of a low pressure, fun, engaging environment.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Kind of how you
that is it. Goodbye.
And they're flexible. Yeah. They're flexible, and that's where we're going to talk about how you can change them, how you can modify them for their curriculum. But that's it. It's like stations. So let me start by explaining what my math block time is. Now, I currently teach fifth grade, and I might interject a little bit with what I do with the fifth graders. because I do a little bit more teacher-led instruction, and then they kind of go to one or two of these stations maybe per day. But I'm going to focus more on what I did when I was teaching second grade. And Stephanie is currently a third grade teacher, although you've taught every grade. But I would say what we're going to share today works maybe a little bit better in that K 1, 2, 3,
Right.
4.
And I'm going to
band.
listen very closely because I have some of her same students. So I'll go,
Oh yeah, that's
maybe
right.
that'll
I've
work.
passed them on. So anyways, when I was teaching second grade, I basically had an 80-minute block every single day. And again, this doesn't need to be the same time. My schedule worked out where I did have it at the same time every day. It was after recess, after first recess or morning recess, but before lunch. I have 80 minutes, 5 times a week. But what I'm going to explain would also work if you only had like 50 or 60 minutes 5 times a week. So that's basically what you want to picture. And the way I ran my block is I would start the math block with 20 minutes of direct instruction where I'm teaching the kids a new concept or skill or whatever it might be. And this is the part that's really important is for me, what worked is to make it pretty fast paced. I don't field a bunch of questions. I just give very basic, clear instructions. And then I do quick little formative checks to make sure they're sort of getting it. But I'm not introducing like huge, big concepts. I'm teaching them something that sort of builds on something they know already or kind of introduces a new concept. So I'm not, teaching multiple things or like one big thing in one time. It's just discrete tasks. Okay, so that's the first 20 minutes. If you have a shorter block, you could definitely cut that down to 10 minutes. Like you just 10 minutes, focus really, clearly, maybe 15 minutes on something. Then I give them about 10 minutes to sort of preview what could be your student workbook or a student page or whatever the student practice portion is. So I've done direct instruction. I go, okay, here's some skills we're working on today. If you're doing these sort of problems, this is what it might look like. And they just sort of get an idea of what it looks like. They're not answering all of them. They're not telling me the answer. They're just kind of understanding today's process and practice. Then I have, anywhere from 40 minutes still left, or maybe even 60 minutes if you have a huge block. And I'm only doing 2 centers. I'm sorry, I take that back. The kids are only going through 2 centers. I have, I'll talk about later, I have 4 stations, but the kids only see 2 of those stations where they do 20 minutes at one station and 20 minutes at another station. Or if you have a huge block of time, 30 minutes at one station and 30 minutes at another. And so they only see 2 of those centers on that day. And I know that means that the kids do not get to the teacher table every single day, and that is totally okay. They do not need me doing more direct instruction or me checking on them every moment. And we're going to talk about how the students do self-checks in their own stations later. But if your, block is shorter, of course, maybe shave down that teacher-directed instruction at the beginning, and your stations that the kids go to are maybe more like 15 minutes each or 20 minutes each, and know that depending on the age level, depending on how much stuff they have to take out, you need to build in that transition time because the cleanup and put away, now move to the next one is going to take some practice, and that's totally fine. I'm going to just pull up, I had to link it because I just couldn't even remember it. I'm going to pull up like basically what one group would do on a, or what all the stations are would be on a Monday. So there are 4 groups, and group 1 on a Monday would first go to the teacher table with me for, 20 minutes, and then they would go to the technology station. Group 2 is the inverse of that. They start with the technology station, and then they go to the teacher table. Group 3 goes to their independent practice first, and then their next station is math facts, and then group 4 is the inverse of that. First, they start with their math facts practice, and then they go to the independent station, and I will explain what those stations are. But if you start with that framework, you can flip-flop it through Tuesday whenever and rotate it through. But the thing here is I would not really recommend personally having the kids go to more than 2 stations in your math block. It's just too much. I feel like it's too much transition time lost. I feel like it's too many things. They don't need to go to that many. And honestly, with my fifth graders, they're really only hitting maybe one station a day. And instead of teacher table being its own station, like I'm moving to, I'm bouncing around or pulling out certain kids. So that's how you can kind of structure with the older kids. Give them one station, and then you are the one moving. But when you're teaching these stations, or this is how I did it in second grade, the first day I talked about the centers, I only showed them one. So we only did the technology one.
Anybody that it's the same like when you do ELA centers and they teach you do everybody does the same thing first, just so they get in the habit of it.
Yeah, and they understand this is the materials I need. This is how I start it. If I need help or assistance, this is where I go, or this is what I do.
For many classes might be doing that in January again when we come back.
When you come back from break.
Or if you've decided to make that change, if you listen to the last one.
Oh, yeah.
That would be the time to do it.
Yeah,
like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another point. Like, I start my centers at the beginning of the year, but if you decide you want to incorporate centers after a break or after a weekend, that's totally fine.
And it's also easier on the teacher when, like, everybody's doing the same thing and you, like, okay, I am doing centers. And it's okay that they're all doing the same thing because I'm training.
Right. And if the first center you're teaching them is the technology center, you make sure they can all log in and bookmark where they need to go or whatever it might be. And like, oh, if you get stuck, like, here's how you do it. And depending on the age, I mean, you might need to spend 2 days on the same station when you're first teaching it. But in second grade, I found, I'd introduce the first center on a Monday. Everyone did it. The second one on a Tuesday, whatever. And by the end of the week, they understand the rotation. And on Friday, you can do a pretend walkthrough. The other thing, too, is don't feel like you have to invent stations. Like, talk to your colleagues, steal our ideas. I'm sure people in your grade band have ideas or things that have worked or not worked. And like Stephanie and I have talked about, sometimes certain stations are amazing a certain year, and then the next year they flop. So
you can change it by a month.
That's true. It can even change by a month.
Well, what's funny is I'm listening to how you have them structured, and just like Mariel knows where everything is, and it's in a file folder that's color-coded and labeled. I am not, my whole math stations, because of when my release time is, I like to do math first thing in the morning. And I know that's kind of me, and that's just what I do. But because of that, I have prep time in part of my morning blocks. So every day is different. Sometimes it's really much between 8:30 and recess, 8:30 and 10. But a couple days, like one day a week, there's music in there. Or at the 9:30 time, 4 days a week, 8 children leave. And so I'll have one group doing technology, one group doing math games, one group with me. And then the group that's with me, I've noticed that because the kids that go have two different, I can kind of group them into two different math needs. So I make it so that those two groups that are going to leave are with me and are going to do the one station I really want them to do. So it doesn't flow like you do this, then you do this, then you do this. Like those groups, they flip-flop between that one station and me, and the other group does the other two things independently. And so that means at the end, there might be two groups doing the same thing, but it doesn't matter because the groups that are independent, one is usually technology and the other one's usually math games.
Oh, right.
That they've already played in class. And that also is good because they have different kids to play with their math games with. And I know that they're getting to the program that we have, which I like because it does target individual needs. And so that's good. And I can also have my computer to the side and track what they're doing while my group is going. And what the groups I see, I also I could change weekly. I could change it twice in the week because even in language arts, my grouping is not static. It's not always I see the A group and the B group and the C group. It's like I need these kids because they need this. I've done stuff we're talking about later what you do in the groups, but it depends on the need. Like they need review or they need a challenge or they just need some practice with me watching them to figure out what their mistakes are so that I can address them.
Yeah, let's talk about student groupings because there's lots of different ways you can do it. You can do it mixed skill set, and that can work also if your students are already seated in groups that are sort of mixed, and then that way you could be like, all right, table 3 is with me today. The direction is very easy. Or you can group it, and this is how I did it in second grade, is I grouped it by what skills do these specific children need help or need reinforcement in or need practice? And then that way, when they came to the teacher table or when they came to a certain center, I could say, okay, you guys are going to work on this particular, skill. Maybe it's like adding double-digit numbers or whatever it might be. And what's nice about that is, like you said, certain kids need certain reinforcement on certain weeks. So you can like mix up who the kids are or whatever.
Yeah, or like now when half this class is sick at one time or another. I'm like, okay, these 3 kids missed all of this, and I need to work with them while everybody else is doing something that's going to help them.
That's a really good point because, like you're saying, kids when they're out sick, are usually out sick for 2, 3, 4 days. So if they're in a group together, they miss the same things, right? So you can use that to your advantage of, okay, I'm going to reteach the skills to this group.
And I found that in math, especially. There are kids that are very good at, numbers and operations. There's kids that are good at geometry stuff. You have kids that can tell time. They can't do these other things, but they can read a clock. And then you have kids that can do advanced division and cannot read a clock. So it's really important to not have the same groups all the time, especially when it's different skills.
Right.
So,
you know how you test really quickly if kids can read a clock, besides obviously asking them the time, is give them the direction. I did this foolishly in second grade without thinking, oh yeah, we're moving clockwise. And then they all just kind of slam into each other. And I was like, oh wait, hold on. Let me explain what I just meant by that. Well,
some of them are still struggling with right and left for some insane reason.
That's true. Maybe that's one of those stations.
Which is your right hand? This is your left. Make it go clockwise. Make it go counterclockwise, really.
Oh, yeah. That can be for the advanced. Counterclockwise. All they need to do is like have a knob or something they have to screw in, and I think they'd learn pretty quickly which direction it goes. But yeah, so I think student groupings can be whatever you want them to be, and they can be fluid, and that's why I don't feel the pressure to make these like amazing signs for which kids are in which group or like pockets or whatever. You can literally just be like, hey, you guys go.
Exactly. That way, then you're not as pressured of, I got to get my groups ready. It's like, at home while your commercial comes on, you can go, okay, look at your list and go, these kids need this. Or look at some test results or some formative assessment you did and go, oh, all these kids can't round. I better put them together and do it that way. And then change it after a while. And you will find that often there's certain kids that are always working together that struggle the same, but it does free you up way more when you're not thinking about, did I see this kid? Did I see that? It's more like, did everybody get this skill? And can I mix them up? And,
totally. Yeah. And even if you are, grading a more formative assessment or like something that's more on paper, you can start piling them by, these kids.
I totally did that the other day. Like, yes. Sorta. No.
Totally. Like they need reinforcement with the base 10 blocks, or this one needs whatever. And then you can just pull those papers and be like, all right, these kids, you're in this station. And because their kids are really great. I have found even with the young ones, like first or second grade, by just saying, this group, you're going to be here today. And, they don't care.
And
they don't need fancy
stuff. It doesn't even have to be like, okay, here's the bell. Everybody get up. Now let's rotate. You can do that way. And probably for little kids, that might be easier for them, but it's also okay, the time is up. You put away your Chromebooks. Now you're working on math games. Right. I want these people to come over here. And then when the kids that you have go, okay, when we're done, you guys are going to go do this. And then you call over the other kids. It doesn't have to be super formal because the main goal is reaching every kid at their need.
Exactly. That's a really good point. And because you've spent that week or so teaching each of those, let's say 4 centers, it's not like my kids never forgot them. They knew what they were. Yeah. The teacher table one's obvious, the teacher table, and the other ones they loved, and so they would absolutely know which ones they were.
Well, yeah.
And that's another reason why you don't have to change it up all the time, because they need to learn their routine and practice it. And if they're not going through all the stations in one day, they do need to practice each one of those stations multiple times.
And if you do have like a technology station, that's whatever program your district or class or whatever is using, that's great because it's always there.
Right.
And then if you have something like our curriculum has a lot of math games, and part of it is I play it with them or against them, and then they get to I'll put out a few for them to choose. Next week, I have just an addition practice paper, which sounds boring, but then you're supposed to match the answers with like a little puzzle. Like, so if you put them all in, you get a picture of the snowman or something. So there's a little incentive. They want to get it done correctly, so later on they can make the picture. But that can be a center. That worksheet can be a center, and they can help each other and figure it out. And maybe some will copy each other. I don't know. But
It's okay.
It's okay sometimes. It's okay for 10 minutes. If they are occupied.
Yeah.
Even writing their numbers. That's a good thing.
Right. Let's talk about what they do at each of their centers.
Okay.
So let's go with the obvious one, which is the teacher table. So this is just a small group instruction, at a table or however you want to set it up. And the way I did in second grade is often the kids would come back with their student workbook and I'd be going through the problems with them.
Right.
So yeah, not every kid did their workbook every day, but every kid, when they came with me, got that extra one-on-one help.
And also that's a good, it's okay. It doesn't have to be fabulous. Bring your workbook over and we're going to go over how to add 2 numbers.
Right, exactly.
And that's important. Or maybe, I know one other thing is if I have a certain manipulative that's just way too crazy for everybody to have, I just do it right there. Like the ones with the little ones and the tens and the hundreds, because those ones go everywhere.
Oh, you mean like those little base 10 blocks? So
No, they're not even the blocks. They're the flats.
The flat ones, the two-dimensional ones?
Right, because the blocks really are for volume if you really think about it.
Oh, sure.
But those little ones are everywhere.
Those little I know exactly what you're saying. The little flat ones that slide everywhere.
Yeah, yes.
Or, God bless you, if you're able to teach an entire class of second graders how to use those geoboards with the rubber band.
Oh, geoboard. Yeah, see, that would be a better teacher-led thing.
Yes.
Especially the first time they use them.
Yes.
So they can
fling the rubber bands
in a small situation, so only 3 kids and a teacher get hurt instead of the whole class or something. I don't know.
Some very well-intentioned teacher introduced that on their first day by handing it out to
because
everyone.
they followed the teacher book.
The teacher manual.
With these children that do not exist, that as these samples. Oh, teacher, I think I see a square, and maybe I divided it on the diagonal. It's like, no.
The sample student answers in the teacher, what am I trying to say? The teacher manual or whatever, where they're like, begin a discussion on the geoboards, and no child turns it into a rubber band gun, and everyone notices something amazing in the
20 years ago, there was the program we used was Mathlands.
Okay.
And though teacher books were so heavy on that, this is what the student will say. And, it was all diverse and everybody was in there doing their own thing and they had different cultural names. It was so trying to be very open. But the thing is, those children never said that. You're like, that must be in Mathland because that doesn't happen in real classroom.
That's good. Let's use that. That must have happened in Mathland.
That happened in Mathland.
We should write a teacher manual that it's so-and-so and so-so immediately began fighting over the red rubber bands.
Yeah.
So-and-so was in the back and she turned hers and flung it across the thing. And then somebody gets hit in the face and you have to fill out a nurse pass.
I don't have the big ones. I only have this one. I only have yellow ones. They're the small ones. I need the big ones.
Yeah. And then they snap and they try to keep reusing them.
Yes.
Think twice before you take out a geoboard.
Yes.
The other thing they can do at the teacher table that I really love doing, especially with 5th grade, is they bring their little individual whiteboards and I'm giving them sample problems and they're collaborating.
Oh, yeah.
And that's easy too. You just pull out problems or like you're saying on a quiz or a summative assessment or whatever, you take out the high frequency missed questions and you just double down on those.
Right. Or I'll sometimes take the post test and do a mini test, just it's a form of formative assessment. I'm trying to use that phrase more. And just take look at the problems, you change the numbers. Or I'll sometimes with some groups use the same numbers because they either won't recognize it or if they do and do the same thing, you'll be happy that they remembered it. And just do those with them. Then you can kind of see, because it's important also to see what their mistakes are so you know what to address, because if you don't know what they're doing wrong, it's hard to help them do it correctly.
Oh, totally. One of my friends, Megan, not our Megan, but my Megan.
There's
She's
many
There's
Megans.
many Megans. She's a high school math teacher. Hi, Megan. She's the best high school math teacher ever. She, with, funding or advocated to have each of her student groups are tables and they have the whiteboard surface because
cool.
she found that they're working on their answers or their solutions on the table on the whiteboard, and she found that to be more collaborative, even more collaborative than a kid holding their individual whiteboard, because they feel a little more self-conscious of like, are they I don't want to write on somebody's individual, the whole table. And then she found kids would do this action where they're helping each other. Oh, it's so worth it. It was amazing to see their collaboration.
Reminded me of something. Okay, do this in small groups, like another way to do the problem. I will just copy a page out of the teacher guide or their book and cut up the problems and glue them on like a piece of poster paper and then give it to that group to do. And you can also differentiate that way. Like, I want you three, and I'll do it even in groups of 3s or 2s. And you 3 do this one and you guys do this one, so that they're all doing some sort of word problem, but you can kind of make sure, these kids understand this vocabulary, or these kids that do everything really fast, you give them the really hard one with 5 steps or something, and have a spare one. Oh, you're done with that? Here's this one.
Right.
And not that I've done it, but you can also give them each a different color. And I say, I want to see all the colors on there to see what you did.
Oh, that's a good point.
And so you could even do that in a group. Okay, you could call it like big math, and you have paper on a big piece of paper, and the group has to solve the problem, and you need to see everybody's contributed with all the colors.
This was my bullet point down here, Stephanie.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just kidding. I didn't share.
No, it's so see.
I didn't pre-share my notes with you, and that's why. Wait, that was a really good. Did you call it big math because it's on the big
I just
paper?
did that right now. I do things like that.
Don't say that. Say that you've done it all along, and the kids love it.
It's
the kids
big
love
math.
it.
Yeah.
All right, so we have teacher table. And
so
also
funny.
big math. And then another station is, give it a fancy name, but in the teacher speak, I just call it independent work. And what that means is the students are working on something that they can turn in, I know that is a little more like product focused, but the kids do like having a station where they like complete something. And again, it's not like,
and it's a little more about accountability than
exactly.
Did you do them all correctly?
Right,
it's more
exactly.
like, did you do something?
I'm not like marking it up and making them redo it. But
that's more of a glance. Like, oh, you did it. Oh, you guys have the same wrong answers. You just copied. You can kind of
because it is nice to have something that is a formative assessment that you can actually check, and that's also what you could use to redo your groupings. But what I like to do is I like to use that independent workstation as a spiral review station. So they're working on stuff from the prior unit. So
that's good.
Because 1, they can do it independently, hopefully, or 2, it's reinforcing a skill that maybe they need to practice. And here are some examples. I've created those like zipper envelope ones that have some of those little math games or puzzles like you're talking about where they're solving the problems and it like makes a puzzle. Or the math problems where they're breaking a code or writing a code.
Yeah.
And they can work together. It doesn't matter. Independent doesn't mean like the kids doing it by themselves, not work with another student. Independent means I, the teacher, am not with them.
You are doing the work and you're not bothering me or the other group.
There are literally thousands of different options you can do for this. I want to really highly recommend Susan Jones Teaching. She has a YouTube channel. She has a store. She has all this stuff. She's amazing. And when I moved from middle school down to second, her channel was just awesome. She does a lot of, she's, I think, actually technically like a reading and literacy coach. But her math centers and stations and ideas are fantastic for K1 and 2, and even, adaptable to 3rd and 4th grade. But that's what they're doing. The kids are doing a little independent work. Then the other station, so I have teacher table, independent work, and then I have technology. And this is if you are fortunate enough for the students to have Chromebooks or iPads or that sort of thing. So if your school or district doesn't have that, it's basically like, is there a little independent game they can do where the students don't necessarily feel like they need to collaborate? Because some kids really do want and need a station where they get to kind of just do something themselves. And also, this is like the quiet station. So if all the stations, all the kids are all like talking and collaborating, That's why it's super hard to work at the teacher table, because I'm basically like barking at kids to keep it down. So if there is a group of kids that are at a technology station or something that they're like wearing headphones on, or they're doing something kind of on their own or in their own little space, then they aren't adding to the noise. And what they can do at this station is most public school districts have some sort of online curriculum thing that the kids are doing. An example could be Khan Academy. I really like I think it's just called Khan Kids or Khan Academy Kids. The younger version one, the one that's for like K1, 2 is really great. This could be Prodigy. I've seen other schools use Extra Math, or even like the program Extra Math, or online like math facts games where they're like doing multiplication.
I think you could even, if you had Seesaw or something.
Oh, yeah. Like load on stuff.
Take a Cami picture of a work page they're not going to do and put it on there. So they're doing it on the computer. I mean, not that they need more screen time, but it might make doing the, 24 plus 37 more exciting because it's on
a screen.
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's
or even
an idea.
If there is only like one computer, there's lots of online like videos or whatever where you could get a headphone splitter and like 3 or 4 kids are listening to the same video or watching the same thing if you don't have a one-to-one. All right, so we have teacher table, independent work, technology, and then the last one I call math facts, but really what they're doing is they're practicing some sort of computation skill. And I do have things that the kids can do this independently, but I actually like this station as a partner station. So what they do at the Math Facts station is I have a bunch of board games, but in order to play the game, they have to answer a flashcard before they take their turn. So for example, I don't care what grade you teach. I'm going to tell you the board game that every single kid that when I've taught high school all the way down to preschool, Connect 4.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I don't know why. Connect 4 is the game. They all know how to play it.
And it's not, you're right. You can play it no matter how old you are.
Yeah, you can play it no matter how old you are. It could be mixed age, mixed ability. They like figure out their little strategy. They love it when they win or whatever. And yeah, anyways, Connect 4. Another one I've had at the station is Jenga, where like before they pull the little block out, they have to answer the flashcard. And you just need a bunch of flashcards or whatever it might be, right? So Connect 4, Jenga. I
just wrote notes down.
So you could remember.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I have my stations from 2nd grade. I'm going to give them to you. Oh, so excited Christmas. No. Okay. Anyways, floor puzzles. This sounds kind of funny, but I had the gigantic floor puzzles, which my 2nd graders loved. But before they could place a piece, they had to answer the flashcard. So that was a big one. Kaboom sticks, where basically I just wrote a bunch of math facts on the popsicle sticks, and then like 3 of the sticks say kaboom. So if I answer, the problem correctly, I keep going or you keep going, but as soon as we get the kaboom, we have to put all our sticks back in.
That's cool.
And then this one sounds kind of weird, but the kids really liked it. I just had a big bin of Lego, and the kids, it was cute. They loved building houses. Like I had the flat pieces, but in order for them to place a piece, they would answer the flashcard or answer the problem. So the Lego was a huge hit.
While you were talking, I just remembered like some of us, and I have them somewhere, we have these blank game boards that came with this ELD thing we had. And you could actually even just make a game board, like, right? Or find one online and print it. And the game could be moving your piece, right? And then you have to take the card and solve the flashcard.
Roll a dice, move
and if you
spaces.
do, you get to keep the card.
Yeah.
If not, you have to put in the discard, and the one who has the most card wins.
Yeah, perfect. And they love it.
And that's not great. That's not huge prep. And you could just change the flashcards to
whatever you're working on.
Geometry figures and multiplication and addition.
Or you could just take the worksheet and cut it up.
Oh, that is perfect. Just cut up the worksheet, stick it on an index card so you can use it more than once.
I also, with my own money, because I actually found it super affordable, is there's specific math little games that are for students of mixed ability. So one of them is called...
Oh, you were talking about that.
Yeah, they're
I need
cool.
to look at it.
And I bought them for 2nd grade, and I still use them in 5th grade. But one of them is called, and I'll link it in the show notes, Adsamundi. Okay, I just realized, check this out. The reason why it's called Adsamundi is because it stands for add, subtract, multiply, and divide.
Did you just discover that right now?
That out. Because
like diagonally.
I gave myself notes on how to pronounce it, and I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Now I feel like I've taught this game so many times, and me and all the children were like, what funny name. Isn't that funny? And it's super obvious. Okay, now I feel dumb. Anyways, that game's fun because it's mixed ability, because you're basically... you use which operation you're strongest with to make the answer. So if the kids are still just working on addition and subtraction, then that's fine. But if a kid can do multiplication, then same thing. So they can all actually play together. The other one, it might even be by the same company, is called Proof, where they're basically doing math problems. But in order to get the point, you have to prove why your answer is correct. So that's fun. And then one I super love, and this is pretty advanced for like that 2nd and 3rd grade, but they can still play it. But my 5th graders love it. It's called Prime Climb, and it has sort of complicated rules when you first do it. They make videos to show you could. I just had the kids watch the videos on how to play the game, but it's really great for teaching prime numbers and like why certain multiples and factors do certain things. So if you're looking for a game for older students, I highly recommend it. But like we just said, one of the things I did, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but I cannot tell you how much the kids love it. Take your worksheet or whatever practice problems, cut them up, and literally just tape them around the room.
Oh, yeah. So they have to go somewhere.
And they have a clipboard, and they have to walk around and solve it. I cannot tell you why. Maybe it's just because it's like somewhat novel, because you're not normally taping
you couldn't.
things.
I don't think you could do it every single day.
No. But like every now and then, or if you had a bunch of indoor recesses where the kids didn't get to go outside and play.
Yeah, that's a good one.
They really love doing that. My friend Megan, who has the whiteboard tables, she also has whiteboards around her whole classroom, so she gets to do that too.
I think
so
that
they'll walk up.
because our Megan, actually went to some workshop or something. She was talking about that and going to try to do that. I don't know if it worked, but that would still be kind of cool.
It's a specific math teaching strategy. I think. Yeah. Should we just live in like a whiteboard world? And on the ceiling.
That's in Mathland.
Oh, it is in Mathland.
Yes.
Speaking of, one time, just to be zany and novel, is I've done this with art projects, but it's really funny with math, is you just take the problem, you tape it under their desk, so they have to lay on their back and like do it just because it's goofy, and they get to go under their desk.
They would be into that.
I know, they would love it. So you can cut up the worksheet, put it in the room, stick it under their desk, or hide it under their seats. I did that one time as a joke. Like, there's 12 problems, you got to find them, and some of them are
actually, that's really good, and it would motivate them to do that. And it's kind of funny, Don't, like you said, don't knock yourself out by buying all these color-coordinated things and laminate everything. Take your worksheet, cut it up, and then figure out a creative way to present it to them.
Totally. Get ready for chairs to be flipped over, though, if you tape them under the chairs like I did.
Well, they're probably flipped over anyways. Give them a good reason.
Yeah, that's true. Be happy that they're not being thrown. Okay, so another one that you were saying is if you take a word problem, I think it works great for word problems. You can use it for anything, and you put it on... What'd you call it? Big math? On the big chart paper?
Big chart paper. I even start calling it big math.
Yeah, each student can have a different color marker, or they could have the same or whatever. I did this recently with my 5th graders where I put up a problem and I made up a fictitious student, and it was like, so-and-so thinks that this and this means this, or like so-and-so thinks the answer is whatever. Do you agree or disagree, and why? And then they had to explain it. But what I let them do is... after they answered the problem, however they wanted, and they walked around, then they got in silence. They had to kind of just do it on their own first. Then they got to talk about it. And they were only allowed to write on their own thing that they wrote. But if they wanted to change their answer or modify it or whatever, they couldn't cross it out. But they could do a little arrow that said, hey, I just realized, I did this and this. Or like, ooh, now I would do this.
So you'd want to give them pencils that don't have erasers.
Oh, yeah, good point. Because, anytime you give them
the little golf pencils.
Perfect.
Because you can buy a whole bunch of those.
That's true.
Cheap.
Perfect.
It's
and
golf
then they'll
pencil
just get stuck in your sharpener forever.
They can't use them in that. That's
nubbin. Yeah, because then they don't fight over the nubbin
Or you could
pencil.
be nubbin math. Use the nubbins.
Oh my gosh. Big math with the nubbin pencil.
That would be fun.
What was I even talking about? Oh, how they all wrote on the chart paper. And they loved it. And they loved being able to... Because in my class, we do a kind of goofy thing where we celebrate failure. I talk about riding a bike and how if you gave up the first time you fail, you would never learn how to ride the bike. So we do a lot of things that like positively reinforce when we have found a mistake, or like we make a correction, because it gets us... The faster we fail, the quicker we can succeed at something. And they really liked being able to go back and modify their answer and explain why and that kind of thing.
I just acknowledged the scrunchy face of learning.
When
your face goes like this, It's like, that means your brain is working. You're trying to figure it out and you don't quite get it, but you're trying. And I can tell
I
you're
like
learning.
your phrase is so much better.
Scrunchy
Big
face,
math.
Scrunchy face of learning.
Scrunchy face of learning.
That's like our understandability-o-meter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I get it. I sort of understand what you're talking. I wasn't listening. I have no idea what you said.
Yeah.
Or somewhere in between.
You know, the whole like, raise your hand if you can hear me, or like that kind of thing. I used to do this, worked really well with middle school. I'd be like, raise your hand if you can hear me. And it's like, raise your other hand if you're wondering why everyone's raising their hand. The kids would be like, what? Before Stephanie gets to her stations, I want to say that you do not need to invent any of these. Steal our ideas, steal your colleagues' ideas, talk to them. If you have, like, we have a district math coach, Bobby. Hi, Bobby. She's amazing. She has a bazillion ideas, and she's created links and printouts and everything. So people have done this. So don't think that you need to start from scratch. Don't think you need to make the things.
Get a worksheet and cut it up.
Big math, people.
Do big math with nubbins.
All right. What do you do? What do you do on your station?
Well, we kind of talked about that.
That's true.
Because right now, the teacher-led station it fluctuates greatly with what they need. Currently, I'm doing math games, what they've already done, and technology. I'm going to probably switch the math games a little bit because we're coming to a unit where I don't like the math games because they do things like go to the sink and measure this amount of water. It's like, no, that's not happening. So I might switch that up a bit and I got some ideas about the math facts practice because they really could use that. But I'm more like what they do with me. Like we said, I like to do the whiteboard math with me because when you have even 15 kids doing whiteboard stuff, you can't possibly see exactly what everybody's doing.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is a way to see what everybody's doing. It's a way to teach the kids because you have those kids. I did it in my head. And we know that especially as they get older, they're going to have to explain what they did in their head. And so using that time to help them explain what they did in their head is helpful. Using manipulatives that they are not familiar with or will use incorrectly is a good idea. Again, if you want to do math groups and you're just like, I don't know what to do, just start out with, we're doing this work page together. And do it with the idea that I want to see how their brains are working because they're right there in front of me and not just copying it from their neighbor or just writing random numbers. Or they can just do it all in their head and you don't know what's happening.
You know what your comment just made me think of is I know that there's probably people thinking, okay, that's great for this one group who can be focused on me, but I have this group of kids who, when they're kind of released without the direct teacher supervision, like go a little bonkers or don't do the thing they're supposed to be doing.
Like X, Y, and Z in my classroom. I won't say their names. There's actually more than that.
A, B, C, D.
Go through the alphabet.
And what I want to say is, one, maybe the first week that group is your teacher table every single day. And maybe part of the reward structure is like, hey, you guys are doing great. Next week, you get to do this station. Or if there's a station that's like very like energizing or like stimulating for them, like maybe the game one might get a little wild.
Yeah.
They only do that station when they're with you. So like you're playing with the game and you're modeling how to behave or like taking turns, or maybe they don't have access to all the games, but only the ones that like don't get wild.
And that's even another way to do the teacher station. You are explaining the game and watching them play. And so they don't get frustrated and make up their own game because they don't understand it, which is what we think about when the kids are off task. One, they have a serious problem keeping on task.
Right.
And so you need to make things so that they want to do what's there. And this sounds silly the other day, and I need to do it more. I keep telling myself they weren't doing this one thing. And I go, when you do it, you get a sticker. And I wonder about giving stickers. And the one kid that's always on the floor, rolling around, doing whatever, he sat in his desk and he did it because he wanted a sticker. Yeah. Those are third graders. You'd think stickers, no, they're not done with stickers.
You know what works in fifth grade? And I got this from Leanna. Thanks, Miss Garcia. She actually did that with second grade, but my fifth graders love it. And we call it Smelly Dot. And you take the lip smackers chapsticks that have like the cool smells. I bought the ones that's like Coke, vanilla Coke, whatever. And if they're quiet, and they're on test, they put out their hand like this, and I just do a little smelly dot, and they have to they're like, oh, that's Sprite, or they're like, that's root beer. And it sounds, okay, first of all, never touch your mouth. These are never for mouths. Let me make that very clear.
You should try hands only.
Yes, I do. I have a little container that's like smelly dots only. And you just walk by and then they sniff it and they try to guess what it is. And the vanilla Coke always gets them because no one drinks vanilla Coke. But they get all the other ones. And it sounds ridiculous, but it is the like 5th grade version of the sticker or the star or the whatever. But yes.
You can get those little stamp markers that have little tiny stamp.
Yeah, so the point is you want to, reward or reinforce the positive behavior. And again, when these centers are first being introduced, maybe certain kids don't go to certain centers yet. Like they'll get there eventually.
And if you do have that in mind with the fluid group, right? So maybe you have like 3 stations out there, but they're only going to go to 2. And those kids just never go to that station where a lot of choices involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And if they can ask why, say, well, I'm not sure you can handle it. And I'm really concerned and I don't want to set you up for failure. Can you do it? And have a little talk with
This is another reason why the math that they're practicing at those stations, for me, is either at least last week's stuff, if not last unit's stuff.
Yes.
Because they can always use spiral review. They can always run it. And the point is, it needs to be independent. So they're not doing this brand new thing that I taught that day at that station. And it also gives you a little grace that since they're doing something from the prior unit or the prior, weeks or whatever, that's where you have those problems or that worksheet or the activity that you just didn't get to in your regular instruction.
Well, that's why I like the math games that we played, and I can decide, first of all, what skill they need to work on. And they're from I still have the multiplications ones out, even though we're doing rounding and 3-digit addition, because they still need to know that, and they're going to come back to it again. They might as well practice it.
Right. All right, so to recap, we have a teacher table, we have a, independent work station with maybe like little envelope stuff or worksheets or whatever it might be, a technology one, and then some sort of maybe games, math, facts, computation one. If you want to have 4, you could even just do like 2 of those.
Or you could just rotate what the ones are that they do on their own, too.
That's true, right. Like, you guys could do this little one.
Because whatever works, if you do it constantly, it will stop working in general.
So everything we gave you is going to go fantastic for a week until it doesn't. Then you got to do something else.
It's like when you give babies like there's certain baby food and they love it.
And you buy a Costco version of it.
Whatever. And then like 3 days later, they hate it and they'll spit it at you and they don't like it anymore. So you constantly have to
That's true.
change it up.
What do I do with all this squash? So you have permission to do whatever you want and change it whenever you want. And that's another reason why don't invest time or money in
especially money.
Yeah, especially money in fancy whatever slides or things that are going to show what station they are, or some teachers hang stuff from the ceiling and no, just tell them, hey, you guys go over there, and then they do it. And then that way it is fluid and it's not as obvious when you're shifting just one kid to a different station.
Yeah, often things I label are based on what I have. All right, we name all our composition books because they're different journals. I will put I had one year I had all these stickers of olives with eyes on them. Don't ask why. I had all these food stickers.
Like the condiment olives?
Yeah.
A little...
So I just put olives on them, and that was the olive book. So it does not have to be fancy. If you're making little signs in the room, whatever's in the die cut thing, look, I can make a teddy bear. This is the teddy bear station because I have teddy bears.
That's so true because we...
It doesn't really matter what
Bridges Math, and I would like to speak to the graphic designer they hired for the covers of. There's 3 student workbooks. There's a student workbook.
Oh my gosh!
The home connections are the homework one, and then there's Number Corner, and they all look the same. They have these little tangram shapes on the front, and they're all the same colors, except certain ones might be the inverse color or slightly different. The home connections one is a house or whatever, but for pre-readers, they all look the same. Exactly
your disorganized, intelligent. The hyper-intelligent kids often are and they're which book?
Yeah, and they all look the same
because they're not focusing.
I had a bunch of you're saying gnome, garden gnome stickers, and I put them on all the student workbooks, and so now I just get out your gnome book.
Yeah, exactly, and it's kind of fun. If you have star stickers, you call it your star book, which sounds and then last year's class always call it Starbucks. We're going to Starbucks. I'm and they take it out, and they just thought it was funny.
There you go. Look how creative we are.
Yeah.
Using stuff that we found in the back of our cabinet.
Yeah, exactly. That is what you use.
Well, that's what all my games are. It's not like I went out and spent like $100 on these games. It was just like whatever game I had in my house that my own children didn't want to play anymore, or ones that some teacher left behind or had in that like discard pile that every school has in their staff room. You're like, oh, I'll take the Jenga or I'll take the whatever, and they play with them. All right, so my classroom story is a very cute thing that recently happened with my 5th graders in one of their math stations. So they worked really hard one day and they asked if they could all play Prodigy together because they love Prodigy. And what I had found out that they also had found out is Prodigy, I don't know, I think in the last couple months or maybe it was even the last year, has set up these things called class challenges where you are challenging other like random schools. Well, not random. I'm in California, and so in order to make it fair, they're having you go against other California 5th graders. So it's like the same content at least. And then also, I think it's based off of class size. So there's 30 kids in my class. We're not going to go against a school that only has like 15 or whatever because it wouldn't be fair. Because what they're counting is the total number of correct answers. And if you get a bunch wrong, it like subtracts from the total, right? So it wouldn't be fair if a large class. Anyways, so we found the class challenges, and we happened to find out that we were in 4th place in California for the class challenges. I don't know how many. It might have been out of like 10 for all I know, but it doesn't matter.
Maybe it was out of 4.
No, it was more than 4 because we saw names below us. And what's cool about the Prodigy class challenges is it shows you how many questions you need to answer to level up. And how many more questions do the kids need to answer to be in 1st? And so we were in 4th, and then the kids were like, hey, let's see if we can go up one. Because there was quite a few. It was like 70 to jump to the next one because they don't play Prodigy every day and whatever. And so 4 or 5 kids started playing, and then they like see our little name kind of tick up a little bit. And then they're like, oh, what? And then they like called over other friends, and then they were like helping each other. Like, no, man, you got to carry the 1. Oh yeah, okay, 12. All right, like do it. And slowly, the entire class was playing either on their own or talking the problems through with a partner to like get the right answer.
Oh, that's cool.
Which I don't know if that's allowed in Prodigy class. Whatever. Don't route me out if they're not allowed to work
together.
together.
Well, if they're only counting correct problems,
I think that
wouldn't matter.
Okay, so not only did we go from 4th to 3rd, and they were so excited because you can display the rankings on the project them, so project them on the TV. And I literally had one kid, like a carnival barker, just calling out, 2 more questions, guys. We're 7 away from the top, and just like the cheerleader, which was amazing. But I also had kids like relaying to each other, like, go to the blah, blah, blah land in Prodigy because those are these kind of questions and we just learned that, or like whatever it might be. So you had the kid that was like coordinating where to go so that we can. And we not only did that, but they were so into it. And because they were all 30 of them were playing, we went to 1st place.
Oh, wow.
And it ends, what's today? It ends tomorrow. The challenge. And I just logged in, and not only are we in 1st place, but we're in 1st place by 300 points. Because
I thought maybe you could log in and see kids are still playing.
No, they might be. Because I did know that after school, like 2 of them just like hunkered down and answered a bunch of questions. They're like, we gotta win, guys.
Funny. And
it's cute because I was like, hey guys, this is great. Just so you know, it's not like it unlocks like special features. I think we get a certificate or whatever. And they didn't care. They just wanted to like beat other schools. And they wanted to beat other schools so badly that 1 or 2 kids was actually, because it'll say the school name in the city. They were looking up the other schools.
Oh, gosh.
And they're like, this one's in LA, blah, 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 blah. Or like, this one's in like San Francisco. And then
but I could see that because I had some of those kids in 3rd grade, and that seems like that kind of bunch.
Totally. And then they use Google Maps to like look at the school, and they're like, this one has a really nice swing set. Let's beat them first. Because California schools don't have swings anymore. It's some like, have you noticed that? There's not like swings anywhere because it's
I know because my kid's school has one, and it was.
It does? They did?
Well, yeah, because
they did.
No, they still have them.
How do they still have swings? I thought we were.
I don't know. They had them when I was there.
Oh, okay.
And then they had them when my kids are there, and I drive by every day, and they're still there.
Oh, because I was convinced that like no California schools had them.
I don't think they put them in.
They don't install
them. If they've been there since the 70s or more, they're still there.
In.
They're grandfathered in swings.
I'm sure it's because kids would launch off of them and or try to go.
Oh, we would do that. Yeah. We had a yard duty that would like hold your legs and walk under to get you going. This older man, bless his heart.
Whip you
around. He would just like walk under you and like hold your legs so you could go really fast.
We grew up with yard duties. He would push us off the swing and get ready for this, listeners. Metal slides that would burn your thighs. Do you remember metal slides?
Oh my God. Did I ever tell you that my sister, there's like these little metal things so you could, and then you'd shimmy up the pole to go across the bells?
No. Did she get burnt on the metal?
No.
Oh.
She slid down.
Oh.
And ended up needing stitches.
Oh.
And of course, my mother was on a field trip with me to the missions.
Oh.
And they couldn't get a hold of her because we didn't have cell phones then.
That's why we don't have cool play equipment anymore.
That's why.
Stephanie's sister.
No sandboxes either because of the cats.
Because cats are... All right, so in case you're wondering why your school doesn't have cool stuff, it's because those of us in California...
We've ruined it for
everybody. I don't miss the metal slides, though. I'm happy those are gone.
Well, yeah, but now if you go down on a windy day... You build up static electricity and you get shocked.
Yeah, but
and your hair goes like this.
Then you can go across the playground and like touch people. And...
I know, but I've gotten like majorly shocked from my children. Like, catching them.
See, we're giving the real facts.
Arcs.
Windy day, plastic slide. Be very wary of children who want to come up and hug you.
Yes.
Because they know it.
Or maybe there's certain children you want to hug.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
You go a couple times down. Well, anyways, if you have any helpful tips about math centers, not about
playground equipment that's going to kill you or harm you.
Oh, you know which one I used to love? The one that would like spin and the kids run on the outside.
Oh,
it's like a little merry-go-round. You learn about, what is it? Centrifugal force.
Totally.
If
you're not in the right part, you're flinging off yourself.
Or like me, you're just in the middle screaming because you feel like motion sickness and they don't let you off. See what we had to grow up with?
I know. This is why we are the way we are.
They have no idea. Anyways, if you have helpful tips for math centers and or you want to relive a horrific playground experience that no longer exists and talk about how we have now saved future children from these things, please feel free to comment on our YouTube video or email us at podcast@thetimecrunchteacher.com, and we'd be happy to share your ideas on a future episode and or use your playground warnings for future generations of children of why they don't have the cool stuff on their playground because of us. It was super cool. Do you remember the little animals on the spring?
Yeah.
I miss those. And then you like fling forward, but your feet would still be stuck. All right. Any other playground things we want to share on our math center? I promised I would.
Oh, my story.
Oh, you have a story?
It's really short. Okay. But so I decided to let the kids know how many points each thing was on the math test.
I know you're trying to.
And this one child, who shall be nameless,
who was not related to anybody on this podcast,
decided that he only wanted this many points, so that's all the problems he was going to do.
The bare minimum to pass.
I just said
get that from me genetically.
I was like, yeah, no, you need to do them all.
Yeah.
But that was funny.
That's why you don't write the number of points on the thing.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
You would think that would motivate them to be like, ooh, this is a 4.1.
No, it was like, well, I only want 7 points. I'm not doing all of them.
I like how he did the math to figure out the minimum to pass, but not the math to complete the thing.
Anyway, it's those loophole children that will look for the loophole in anything you say.
That's true. And some of them are related to the non-loophole teachers who would never do the bare minimum. Anyways, thank you so much for your kind attention today. Until next time, teachers. Bye for now.
Goodbye.